Hello there, I'm Daniel, the Miniature Wizard, and this week we're going to be crafting a thatched roof from start to finish. So without further ado, let's get crafting. Okay then, so what is it we actually need to get started with this project? Firstly, we're going to need something to actually thatch. In my case, I've prepared a small herbalist cottage made out of foam core and XPS foam. Secondly, we're going to need some kind of twine. Now for this particular technique you want to avoid synthetic fibres such as nylon, things like that. So I've chose a 6-ply jute twine. This is made out of natural straw-like fibres and it makes really good thatching. Next we need some kind of cardboard. This is just cheap cardstock, you can use cereal box, whatever you have to hand. And all we're going to do is cut it into narrow strips about the width of our roof, and this is what we're going to glue the twine onto. We're going to form strips that we can then ladder and overlap to create our thatching. To glue the twine, I prefer hot glue. It's an instant fix, it's strong, you can't really beat it for this sort of project. Scissors, we need something to cut the twine and to trim it down. We also need to fix and seal our fibres in place, and for this we're going to use a mix of Mod Podge and water. We'll brush it on and that'll just set everything in place nice and strong. Little nit comb is here to brush the fibres out, straighten everything up before we seal it. And finally, if you wish to paint your roof, cheap artist acrylic paints are just great for this sort of thing. And that's pretty much all we need. Okay then, let's get started. For this technique we need our twine, and for best results you're going to want an organic natural fibre. So this is jute twine and this is made of very fine plant fibres. This is a 6-ply, so if you get close to the camera, it's made of 6 individual strands. If we twist against the grain of the fibres, we'll open up these strands and we can then pull them apart. And we want to loosen each individual strand. Again, this is 6-ply, so we're going to have 6 strands. So, again, it's quite an easy technique, but it's very time consuming. However, I think the end result is definitely worth it. So we've got our 6 fibres. Now we can go one step further and twist these open, and these are made of very fine straw-like fibres. So if we pull them around, it's almost like hair. Super fine. We're going to separate these now. I'm going to do that for each individual strand. Now this is a very slow technique, but the more time you spend separating out these fibres, the better the end result will look. So we're just going to keep opening them up, separating and working our way through. So there's no rush, take your time, do a good job. That one doesn't want to separate very well. There we go. So I'm not going to do the whole strip, it's going to be really boring, so we'll do a couple of runs and then we'll fast forward the video. There we go. So once you've unravelled them, you should have something like this. Now normally I'd spend a bit more time unravelling, but for the sake of the video I'm just trying to rush through. So I'm going to take our finger and then just push the fibres one way. Okay. Next we're going to take our hot glue and just run a bead along our cardboard strip. Then use our fingers to just press it into the glue. Remember, hot glue is hot, so watch your fingers, don't burn yourself. And there we go. So that's first strap done. We're going to take our scissors, trim it off, and then repeat the process. And we want to go all the way down to the bottom. So I'll do one more strip and then we'll fast forward the video. So remember, it's dead simple. Twist to open the fibres, unfurl all 6, as so, Now it can be a bit fiddly, but again, take your time and you'll soon get through them. So now we have our individual fibres, we can open them up by twisting those and then pull apart the fibres and we get this very fine hair-like straw effect. There we go. Easy. Again, it's a very slow technique if you're doing an entire roof. I like to just do maybe one strap a day if I'm doing a roof and get on with other tasks in the meantime. Right. Pull apart. And there we go. Same again. Bead of glue. And then press it into place. Okay. So, pretty easy. We'll fast forward and show you what the finished strap looks like. Okay then, so once we get to the end, we should now have something that looks a little bit like this. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is secure all these fibres in place. We don't want any stray fibres come out when we start to comb it. So all we're going to do is run a bead of glue along the base, over the cardboard, that's the whole thing. I'm just going to use the tip of our glue gun to smudge it in. We want it all pressed into all the fibres to help keep everything in place. Don't want any stray strands coming out when we start to comb it. Oh, we don't want too many coming out, you're going to lose quite a few. So I'm just going to rub it all in, nice and easy. And you should be left something like that. Okay. So now we can start to brush out the fibres slightly. I'm going to use this nit comb, just trying to get rid of all the loose stray fibres that aren't glued down and just tidy the whole thing up slightly. You see it's all starting to come out now. Looks a bit like dog hair. We'll get rid of that. And we don't want to brush too much away, we just want to get rid of the looser fibres. Okay, with that done, the final step is to just trim it down. So as you see, I've already done 3, and when they are overlapped they should look something like this on the roof. And I want to cut this to the same size, so I'm just going to use this as a guide and then trim away the excess. Oops. So, now this makes great long grasses, so if you want to keep it for a future project I recommend putting it away. You can make all kinds of nice plant stuff with this, but that's for another day. The minute we're doing the roofs, and as you can see we now have 4 individual strips. There we go. Okay, so for the peak of the roof we're going to use the exact same technique. However, the cardboard we use this time is slightly wider and we're going to fold it over to this triangle shape so it just sits nicely on the roof. I've cut a small section out of the tip just so it fits with the chimney. The way I've built it, it's just a bit awkward to slot it on the roof. And instead of just doing one side, we're going to double it this time. So you're going to run our bead of glue, pin down our fibres and unravel each individual side. So we're going to have both sides unravelled. It doesn't need to be quite as long as the other one, it's just to hide all the hot glue at the top of the roof. and tidy everything up. So there we go. So pretty much the same technique, and then unravel the fibres. The only thing we're not doing this time is we're not going to run a hot bead over the top to secure the fibres, because we don't want that messy glue on the top of our roof. We're just trying to hide that, which is the purpose of this cap piece. So same again, unravel all our fibres until you've got something like this, and that's just going to sit on the peak of the roof. Okay. With our thatch strips complete, it's now time to start laying down the roof. Now if, like me, you've got some odd shapes on your roof, I've got kind of an archway over the door and a chimney, you might have to trim your strips so they fit. So all I'm going to do now is run a bead along the cardboard of hot glue, and then on the roof as well. There we go. I'm just going to press this onto the roof where I want it. Okay, make sure them fibres are nice and squashed into that glue, as so. And the other piece. And we'll tidy everything up at the end. It's not going to be perfect straight off the bat. There we go. Now if I just measure this, it's just a bit off, so we're going to snip away there. And repeat. Go. Press it in nice and good. Make sure that hot glue takes all the fibres. There we go. Just realised my shoulder's in the way. That's a good start. And there we go. Now the reverse. A bit easier this side because there's no odd shapes. So I'm just going to put this on as it is. There. Much the same, we have got the chimney in the way, so we're just going to measure up slightly. That's where I'm going to cut it. And there we go. Glue. I'm running out of glue here. That's not good. Let's hold it in place a minute and then release. Okay, so we're starting to get that thatched effect. glue stick, because this is out. Now for the final piece. Nope, not the final piece. I've got this little bit, haven't I? Don't forget that. Glue in there, on there, on there. And we can just squeeze that in here. Now we are going to trim these fibres down a little bit. I'm going to get some glue in here as well. And then just apply a bit of pressure. There we go. And now for the top cap bit. Our cap piece. Plenty of glue. There we go. And this can just sit on top, as so. Okay. Things are starting to take shape. Now, we still need to trim this down, it's still quite thick and funky. So for that, we're going to use some hair clippers. Confession time. I've made a little bit of a rookie mistake on this one. So the next step where we trim down our thatch, I hit record on the video and it didn't record. Absolute bummer. So I'm just going to talk you through what I did. So when we first did our thatch, you'll notice that each layer was quite thick. It didn't look natural. So all I've done is trimmed it down. Now you can use scissors for this, but because I own a set of hair clippers, I just use those. And all I did was tapered the edge of each strip. So if we turn around, this is kind of what we've gone for, with everything neatened up. So the big downside with this technique is shedding. These fibres aren't the strongest and they will start to shed over time. So one way we can avoid this is to fix them in place. I'm going to be using a mix of Mod Podge and water, just brushed over the top, and when that hardens, everything will be fixed in place nicely. Now, I don't follow any specific recipe. This is about a 25% mixed Mod Podge and 75% water. And all we're going to do is just brush it into the fibres. This dries perfectly clear and matte, so you won't get a nasty horrible shine. And then I'm just going to apply a light misting of isopropyl alcohol. The purpose of this is it breaks down the glue and helps it soak into all the fibres. Now I'm going to do the other side and then I will come back in a minute. So newly thatched roofs tend to have this golden brown appearance. However, as the roof ages, these fibres will start to darken and brown over time. So if you want your roof to look new and pristine, you can probably leave it at this step. If you're not going to be handling it, I'd probably avoid setting the fibres as well. One thing you've probably noticed is as they've stiffened, they've kind of clumped together. It's not a problem for me because I'm going to be painting mine. I want a more mature looking roof. Okay, so for paint, I've mixed 2 acrylic paints with a little bit of water and we're just going to paint the whole roof. You probably notice I've masked off some areas I don't want to get paint on, my chimney, the wooden railings. So with slightly watered down paint, I'm just going to start brushing it into all these fibres. With the front of the roof painted, I'm now going to skip ahead to the next step. Now that our roof is darkened, it's time to add some highlights and bring back some of those original colours. This will be achieved with a simple dry brush. We start by loading our brush up with a mid-tone brown, and then wiping away most of the paint on a piece of tissue. Now it's just a simple case of going back and forth with our dry brush and picking out the raised textures on the model. Now let's speed things up a little bit. With our first dry brush complete, we're now going to repeat the process with a lighter shade of brown. This time we're going to wipe away much more paint from the brush and apply a much lighter dry brush over the model. Okay, so after dry brushing some colour back into the roof and bringing out the texture, we should have something a little bit like this. Now all that's left to do is to base our model. So I've took the step to prepare a little herb garden, as so. And a little cottage will sit just nicely on top, as so. And I think this project is just about complete.